Good afternoon. I'm Pensacola Mayor D.C. Reeves. Like you, we at City Hall are monitoring the storm system approaching the Gulf of Mexico. If you've lived along the Gulf Coast for any length of time, you know that when a system enters the Gulf, it cannot be ignored. And while there are a few days before expected landfall, which is anticipated between Tampa and the Panhandle, we should start preparing now for potential impact. It may be easy to focus on the forecasted track of a storm, but it's important to understand that cone of uncertainty. Any movement of a storm's track can quickly place our city within that cone. First and foremost, I want you to know that preparations are already underway all over your city government. I met with all of our department directors today, meetings that will continue regularly in the coming hours and days. Our police and fire department preparations are continuing as we speak. Our public works crews have already been cleaning storm drains and creating capacity in our retention ponds. Our airport, port, and the Parks and Rec department are also taking necessary pre-storm precautions. We are also making sure all our city sites are storm ready. But that leads to this question. What are you doing to prepare yourself and your family? The best thing you can do right now is prepare. Do you know your flooding zone? Do you know your evacuation plan if it's needed? I strongly encourage you to do that now in the calm before a possible storm. You should also pay attention to all updates from the Escambia County emergency operations. Sandbag locations are available, and if emergency shelters are needed, they will provide the information you need to access them. Stay safe, stay calm, but most importantly, stay informed. You can find all of the information you need on storm preparedness at www.myescambia.com/be ready. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Pensacola Mayor D. Everybody, Chief, you can come on up. All right, so obviously we continue to monitor the system, and that's been the talk of the week, of course, making sure that we're prepared and ready to go.
first and foremost, I have the utmost confidence in our team, and Chief Craner is helping lead that incident response, that we're ready to go. And that's what you should expect from your city government, is for us to be prepared. We've been doing that all day. Yesterday started with meetings. Public Works has been out cleaning storm drains. We've identified our debris areas, all of those things that the citizen may not think about, that are a huge part of any storm, no matter the severity, no matter if it's directly hitting Pensacola or we're on the outer bands of that. All of those things matter. And so I've got the utmost confidence in our team. We had another meeting this morning. We'll have another one tonight at 8 o'clock. I'll let Chief Craner speak to those details. Certainly not here to speculate about what the storm is or isn't going to do, other than to convey to the public that we're prepared, we're ready to go for whatever happens. And we know the unpredictability and the nature of storms like this, that we think one thing 1 hour, and then it could change very quickly. And given the predictions of how quickly this storm could move into the region, obviously we wanted to be out in front of that. So before we go, I've just got a couple other updates before we go to that. I just wanted to pass it off to Chief Craner, and then we'll take any questions storm related, and then I'll give you a couple other things before we get out of here. But Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. We are coordinating with Escambia County Emergency Management, and they're coordinating a daily National Weather Service briefing. City departments are prepared to respond. We are operating in a FEMA National Incident Management System cycle of our planned meetings and coordinating and activating our plans as necessary. This storm is moving very quickly. We are still looking at changes, possible changes, and so we must be prepared for the eventuality of it coming here, and we will maintain that level of readiness and operations. Any questions for me?
Who is the incident commander for the county?
The county's incident commander is coordinated through their emergency management office, and it's typically a member of the board of county commissioners.
Okay. And you're the incident commander for the city?
That's right, coordinating with Escambia County.
DC just not good enough to do it?
He is good enough, but he needs to be out here speaking with you in the community.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, and again, we'll continue to update and cascade information out. We gave out the myescambia.com/be ready for a one-stop shop of information, and of course we want, as Chief Craner mentioned, we're going to be in lockstep in alignment with the county's emergency operations. But again, we want to convey is these things tend to cause concern and uncertainty, that we wanted to certainly provide the certainty to the city residents that we're on top of it, we're thinking about it, and every nuance to it. And it's great to have Chief Craner, who has experience in this and does a fantastic job helping coordinate that effort. So very appreciative of that. Two other just quick things. Obviously, we've been laser focused on the storm. One is after the conversation about Parcel 5 and the lease being approved at Maritime Park, there was lots of discussion that we had as a group, as a council, about making sure that the West Main Master Plan was respected in some way. So that was part of the conversation of the vote. And after that meeting, I kind of brainstormed a little bit about, how do we continue to give the public who did participate in those conversations the assurance that the feedback we were given and that report that the city took on would continue to be respected in some way, or at least just be monitored. And because obviously once we give the lease, that the development group has to follow all those city's rules and guidelines, but as it pertains to the West Main Master Plan, not necessarily. That I believe they have full intent to do so. And kind of with this next step, I think we can certainly prove that we have a vested interest in making sure that that's respected. I know the council does, and certainly the development group. So we've actually are going to bring on in a consultant role Marina Corey, who helped co-author the West Main Master Plan. So she will be working as a city representative and be in the room, in the conversations with Gensler Architects and with the Dawson Group no one more fit to do so. She was the author of that plan, and so that means we will ultimately have that seat at the table as they start to go through those through drawings and through additional planning about what the building's going to look like, how it fits into the Maritime Park area, and how it fits into the West Main Master Plan. So, we're excited for that, and I'm very appreciative of Dawson Group and Gensler for doing that. That's certainly not something required of them, and that can be tricky, right? To have a city representative in the room, and so this is not going to be some kind of final approval or anything that would have to go through. But just like any consultant that we would have, this is a big $100+ million development, probably maybe north of 150. So we're excited to have the person who got all of that community feedback, all of that engagement back in 2019 and helped author that report is going to be working hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder with Gensler as they start the design process. So again, that it's really, I think, a positive for all sides. I think that'll eliminate some ambiguity or questions if we get further down the road and say, why was this designed this way, or why did they do that? We'll have had that person in the room to be able to have those discussions and tell us maybe why we landed on something that didn't fit the plan perfectly, or guide us back into where it does fit the plan perfectly. So anyway, we're in the final stages. We haven't gotten that signed yet, but we're close enough that we could say that we're going to bring Marina on in that consultant role to be the city's representative as design begins on Parcel 5. And if this goes well, this would be something like this would be our intent for every parcel that would happen at Maritime Park if we were to get additional leases that we would have, again, city representation in respect of the West Main Master Plan. And then lastly, Gibson School was approved by the school board, which I'm very excited about. We've been talking about for a long time. I'm appreciative of the school board, of the superintendent, Leonard, for collaborating with us to know that our entire goal here is to give this historic building its best shot. We have 6 months of due diligence. There's lots of due diligence to do. I think our first steps are going to be a full structural assessment of the building. We have sent a team through there before, probably several months ago now. We sent a team through there, and there are certainly questions about the structural integrity of the building, no doubt about it. But we don't have enough information yet, and so that's what the 6 months of due diligence is for. It's also to start the process of what's out there in terms of National Register, historic preservation credits, grants. We're already starting that. We're emailing about it this morning. You guys have seen it's been put on the 11 to Save list in the state of Florida, and that's a large part thanks to Councilwoman Broughton, who continues to be a champion for preservation of buildings, and this one's no different. Me and her have had many conversations about this, and so we'll see what happens. Over these next 6 months, and again, I appreciate the school board kind of knowing what our intent is here, and that we have an ability, unlike selling it on the private market, we have the ability to give it its best shot. And if this was sold on the private market, we know that that's really not necessarily the case. So it really is a partnership in that sense. And so more to come on that. I will tell you, even if we can get past these few hurdles of structural integrity, things like that, this is not going to be a short-term fix. I don't expect that someone's going to be in that building in a year. Whatever we do, I expect there's going to be some significant work that needs to be done, and I would never promise the citizens that we would acquire this building and there would be something in there immediately. We know that, and this is a long road ahead, and we're signing up for that because we care about being able to preserve this type of history, and this doesn't come along, very often. So, so excited that we've gotten this first step done, and more work to come, and we'll see what happens. But those are really the other two non-storm related updates I want to give you, and then happy to take questions on those or anything else.
October 1st is practically here, and we've been looking at the homeless issue. There's some state mandates involved as well, some state restrictions. How close is the city individually or in partnership with the county toward finding a place for people to sleep and also the requisite services required by the state?
Yeah, so first, let's talk about the, we have the ordinances going to council, the first read of those ordinances that will align us with what the state law requires. So we've started having conversations around city government weeks ago in preparation of what will change come October 1st on many fronts. What I think, if you were to speak to mayors and county commissioners across the state, I think what you would find out is there's going to be a significant challenge to adhere completely to, by December 1st, I believe is the date, or January 1st, where we would have the second part of this, where it would be, this place, this encampment that would be built, and especially given the fact that the state legislature has not provided any funding to do that. And so those are the conversations I'm having. That's something that I've mentioned to Don Gates, that pending the election would be in that position to help us there. And I think he agrees that if we're going to be mandated to do something at the city or county, it would be nice to have funding of which to do that. And so what I can't speak for the county. I can say at the city, we've had these ARPA dollars, about 1.1 million. Our goal initially was to look at a low barrier shelter, which ultimately is, not exactly, but ultimately what they're prescribing here. And we had the study done by John DeCarmine, and it came back that it's a significant expense. $1 million of one-time money won't scratch the surface of what this will take to operate. We're talking about multi-millions of dollars annually, much less just the startup capital. So we've pivoted to say, well, how can we solve something now? How can we increase capacity like today? And so I've gravitated more towards this temporary shelter, where we're in the final stages of getting this to council for our ARPA funding. And you see this, the city of Tampa just did this with Catholic Charities down in their area, where they have these, wind-rated, climate-controlled temporary units, 70 square feet, 120 square feet, where, and then my hope would be is that the city will allocate those dollars to provide those, and then our current providers who need capacity, that have the room to do it, we'll probably have the Homeless Reduction Task Force help us filter through, who's ready to take on those units. So my goal is to increase capacity through these pallet type shelters that can be built in hours, that could be here really as soon as that they were ready. And we would have additional time past December 31st. All of those would not need to be delivered and installed. The funds need to be encumbered for ARPA by December 31st. So job one is to get those dollars encumbered with whatever vendor gives us the most competitive bid, and then at that point, and I mentioned this during the Homeless Reduction Task Force quarterly meeting a couple weeks ago, that at that point we will inject that $1 million into helping our current providers increase capacity. And our hope is that might not be the folks that are on the street right now, but if for the folks that maybe have started to get their life in better order and they found a job, but they're still at one of our shelters that is ready to be in their own unit, then that move would open up another bed for someone that might be in an earlier stage and not be as far along. So capacity increase wherever that goes, and that can come in any form. It could be five units at one place and 5 at another. If all of the agencies wanted to get together and do it at one place, and there's more, I'm open to all of that. But the bottom line goal is, how do we increase capacity today and with the funds that we have, and that it can be successful. So I kind of vetted this idea out with just a random sample of a few. Hey, if we were to do something like this, would this help? And, across the community, and it seemed that it would. And that maybe it doesn't meet the exact definition of exactly what the bill calls for, but no one could ever charge us with saying we're inactive in it, that our goal is to increase capacity so we can try to adhere to the bill as best we can within the funding that we have. What I hope to see, and I'll be advocating for in Tallahassee, is to say, look, we agree with you that that's a resource that we need, but we got to fund it somehow. I expect I will not be the only city, and we will not be the only county asking for that.
Just to follow up, yeah, the unfunded mandate, that's the tough. In the interim, like in the next few months, we've got a situation where, and I haven't seen the ordinance, so forgive me, like basically it's not legal to sleep on public property. And then if you sleep on private property, somebody will trespass you, and probably would if it was my property. So we literally have people who have nowhere to sleep. How's law enforcement going to handle that? What conversations have been had about, like, we don't really have a place for you to go, but you can't be here? Is there going to be some leniency, at least in the beginning, or what can be done?
Well, there's a couple things. One, it's not always a situation that the person who's sleeping on the side of the road wants to go somewhere. So, we can't assume that. And we can't assume that there isn't a bed somewhere. Just because we're injecting $1 million in additional housing right now doesn't mean that every bed every day is taken, or that our community response specialists are out there having dozens and dozens, hundreds of interactions with folks that isn't just our law enforcement, coming up in a bulletproof vest and a gun. We've got our trained staff that's out there trying to help with outreach, that has the relationships with some of these nonprofits that can help provide. And sometimes, in some situations, like the Project Reconnect with the county, it could be a bus ticket back to where your family lives, and somehow you've gotten down here. So it's kind of hard to pigeonhole that every person that you may see sleeping down on Palafox Street, it doesn't have need the same solution. And so I think there are solutions out there. But the rule is the rule. If there is no camping on public property, and we have an obligation by state law to adhere to that, and that's what we intend to do. And that opens a whole nother conversation, especially downtown. I think one thing that every agency, every nonprofit, every advocate for homeless and homeless reduction can agree on is panhandling is a huge factor in why you see presence downtown. So you just have to ask yourself, and when you talk to your friends or your family, that giving that $1 out the window or $5 out the window isn't solving any problems. And you can make a case that with panhandling that it's creating problems. We have a public safety ordinance that now we don't want people stopping their cars in the middle of a green light. That causes safety issues. It's why it's one of the most complex issue any mayor in the country. I just was with 50 of them this weekend that is dealing with, and there is no be-all, end-all solution. There isn't just create this housing and that solves it, or try to arrest your way out of homelessness and that solves it. There is no be-all, end-all. So we do the best we can within the rules to enforce. But at the end of the day, House Bill 1365 has prescribed pretty clearly what we're going to do, and we intend on following that law. And so the ordinances that you see that are coming forward is just aligning ourselves and making sure that our rules now match what the state rules are. And currently they don't, given the new legislation. So we may end up having some discussion about that as council and administration on Thursday. But I think most folks understand kind of where we are. And we've talked to our PPD, we've talked to our community response folks, and we've been preparing for October 1st. So I think the plan is to adhere to the state law that we've been given.
Yeah, Mayor, yesterday was the 1 anniversary of Baptist leaving the inner city. Any comments? I know they had a lot about how many new jobs they hired and how well they're doing, but where they left.
So actually getting a briefing on that this afternoon, but what I do know is that we are full steam ahead with our demo consultant. Has been there now multiple times, and I think hence the meeting this afternoon. I think we're starting to get to some some clarity on what can be saved, what buildings can be saved, if any. Remember, lots of speculation out there of why don't you turn this building into that, and we kind of want to study the toxins that might be in the building first before we start making any promises there. And there's a very real school of thought that nothing can be saved there because of just the sheer cost and the environmental impacts. So I don't know enough yet to answer that fully, Rick. But I know we are aggressively moving towards what we wanted to do in step one, which is before we get into a full-blown agreement and saying we are taking this property, I have to do right by the taxpayers and say I need to know everything I can about that property before we take it on. And so we are full steam through that process. And I believe the next phase, if everything checks out there and we feel okay about that, the next process would be probably hiring some kind of city representative to help us both with community engagement and kind of managing the project, as a whole. This is a big project with lots of factors. So that would be our next step once we have some clarity around what needs to be demoed and what doesn't need to be. And I should mention, 1A is, of course, the price, but we can't price anything until we understand, all the ramifications. No, they're donating and saying, sorry, the price of demolition. Yeah. So once we know what could be demolished and what couldn't be, what kind of environmental factors we have there, without that information, going to a bid for a demo doesn't do us any good. So I should say before step two of us hiring community engagement and starting that full blown, let's talk to the community process. I know Baptist did that a few years ago, but dynamics have changed. And that doesn't mean that that's bad information or doesn't mean there isn't something to glean from it, but we're certainly not going to be solely reliant on conversations the city wasn't a part of, or a small part of it. We were invited to that, but if this is going to be a city project, then we're going to want to hear their community's voices to our ears on exactly what they want, and so we'll start that.
Just to follow up, the Paces project, is that moving ahead?
It is. They've gotten, last conversation I had with them was they've gotten those tax credits, and so that is moving forward. There are some little things that'll delay it. For example, the easternmost building actually sits on where a little tiny sliver of current building, so that we got to get that cleared up. There's some right of way things. If you recall, you may not, but because it's been a while, but. Where the two projects are talking about going is there was an old city street that went through there. Then it became the Baptist parking lot. So there's some easement, rezoning things that we've got to work through. Nothing that we can't figure out that makes total sense. But yes, I would say the first thing you are going to see on that property going is those 200 affordable units, and I think that's a good thing. Kind of like talking about Gibson, but even further, this is going to be a multi-year project. I mean, go find every success story of who's figured out how to do this and find out how many years they're in. We went to Bayou District Foundation, they're 15 years in, and it's amazing what they've done, but they're still working on it. They're getting a grocery store there, and so this will be a multi-year project. But the big work being done now is what do we need to know environmentally, getting that donation agreement completed, understanding what the cost of that demolition will be. So that's where we are now, and I'll probably know even more next week than I do at the moment. We'll have those meetings today.
On recycling, Waste Management now has the big facility up in Fort Walton Beach. Santa Rosa County looks like they may be making a switch and moving away from ECUA and contracting with WM, I guess as they're calling it. Any thoughts from the City of Pensacola around that? Has that been explored?
Yeah, so that I understand that as the for better or worse, is the person first to go on that. We've certainly got a lot of emails about it, but I think when you read what the other surrounding counties, I think it kind of reinforces what we were saying, which is what's the goal here? The goal here is to help the environment, and we've got to figure out ways and mechanisms to do that and to be able to do it affordably. That we're not just passing on large costs to our customers. So what I can tell you we're doing, we've had some great conversations, and we should in the next few weeks have some exciting progress as it pertains to potential grants and some potential partnership with some recycling nonprofits that will really up the game in terms of when we do bring back curbside recycling, what that looks like and our ability to control contamination. But to your direct question, our intent fully at this point, no matter what direction we go with curbside, is that we will be formally RFPing where the collection takes place. So ECUA can apply, Waste Management can apply. And there's actually, as a matter of fact, there's an additional facility. I don't know what the time frame is on it. There's another facility in maybe in the Foley area that's been announced. So in some ways, the dynamic has changed where that makes it that much more competitive, which is good for the taxpayer, good for who's paying for sanitation. So regardless whether we go with Adams Sanitation as a third party or whether we do it ourselves and start it back up ourselves, regardless of how we pick it up, where we take it is going to be bid. So we have made that decision. So in the coming weeks, we'll have that RFP out that'll say, all right, tell us what you're going to charge us per ton. And, like what's been reported, that Waste Management has the ability to say, well, here's the default price, and here's what it is if you're bringing us clean recycling. So we like that philosophy, and maybe that's something ECUA would look at too. We'll see. We'll see what people come back with, but competition for who's going to take recycling is a good thing I think for citizens and taxpayers, and making sure that we do everything we can to help save them money. All good.
I've got just a couple more.
All right.
This one regards the tech park. Just any updates on tech parks, any movement on bringing tenants or anything, any forward motion there?
Not that I've heard. That's a Florida West PEDC question, but not that I've heard. We're certainly always at the ready to have conversations. There's been some very early ones that I don't think necessarily we're going to go anywhere. We're pinged on it every now and then, but and Erica probably would be best to speak to that. She would be the one being pinged first in this building about any of those. But as far as what's gotten to my desk, really little to nothing in terms of what's happening at the tech park.
Thank you. And last one, have you heard any complaints from people living near the Sanders Beach Community Center regarding parking concerns during events that block drives and they say limits the ability of emergency responders to get through? Is that ringing any bells?
No, and I live down there, so I haven't seen that. I know we've had a couple issues over the years with parties that aren't permitted there, larger groups, things like that. But we're aware of those and we react accordingly. So, but yeah, no, we haven't. Nothing has got to my desk that we've had an issue of blocking response vehicles or anything like that. So, all right, thank y'all.
Good afternoon. I'm Pensacola Mayor D.C. Reeves. Like you, we at City Hall are monitoring the storm system approaching the Gulf of Mexico. If you've lived along the Gulf Coast for any length of time, you know that when a system enters the Gulf, it cannot be ignored. And while there are a few days before expected landfall, which is anticipated between Tampa and the Panhandle, we should start preparing now for potential impact. It may be easy to focus on the forecasted track of a storm, but it's important to understand that cone of uncertainty. Any movement of a storm's track can quickly place our city within that cone. First and foremost, I want you to know that preparations are already underway all over your city government. I met with all of our department directors today, meetings that will continue regularly in the coming hours and days. Our police and fire department preparations are continuing as we speak. Our public works crews have already been cleaning storm drains and creating capacity in our retention ponds. Our airport, port, and the Parks and Rec department are also taking necessary pre-storm precautions. We are also making sure all our city sites are storm ready. But that leads to this question. What are you doing to prepare yourself and your family? The best thing you can do right now is prepare. Do you know your flooding zone? Do you know your evacuation plan if it's needed? I strongly encourage you to do that now in the calm before a possible storm. You should also pay attention to all updates from the Escambia County Emergency Operations. Sandbag locations are available, and if emergency shelters are needed, they will provide the information you need to access them. Stay safe, stay calm, but most importantly, stay informed. You can find all of the information you need on storm preparedness at www.myescambia.com/be ready.